Ken Whiting with Paddle TV with yet another unbiased, full-on gear review. And in this video, I'm reviewing the P&H Sea Kayaks Leo. Now, this kayak is what you would call a high-performance sea kayak. In fact, let's look at what they say about this kayak. The Leo is a versatile cruising sea kayak with superb stability, ample gear storage, and an extremely comfortable cockpit with plenty of room to stretch your legs as you take on longer journeys or travel between place blocks along a coastline. Well, that sounds like a pretty nice kayak to me, but it's my job to dig deep, test this thing, and figure out, does it do what they say, and is it worth the money? But before I get this thing on the water and give it a go, here's some more information about the Leo. The P&H Leo comes in two sizes, an HV, a high volume for larger paddlers, and an MV, a mid volume or medium volume for average size paddlers. The boat that I'm testing is the HV, the high volume. The P&H Sea Kayaks Leo retails for $2,599 US. It's 16 feet long, it's 23 inches wide. It has a volume of 87 gallons, or 333 liters. It has a weight of 60 pounds, or 27 kilos. And it has a capacity of 245 pounds, or 124 kilos. The Leo has grab handles at each end. It has full deck lines and bungees on both the stern and the bow. It comes standard with 3 hatches, 1 in the bow and 2 in the stern, with an option for a 4th hatch, a day hatch, in the front. It comes with a drop skeg or with an optional scudder, which is a skeg that actually works like a rudder. In the cockpit, you have adjustable foot pegs, thigh hooks, hip pads, a contoured padded seat, and a back band. Well, I have to say, I'm excited to get this sucker on the water. I like the looks of it. Now it's 16 feet, but it's got pretty good rocker on it, which means it should be quite maneuverable. Now, what I really like is the fact that it closely resembles, it's like the big brother or big sister to the Virgo, which I tested last year and absolutely loved. It was 14 feet long, 2 feet shorter, and so we'll see how these 2 feet extra play out with the Leo. I'm nowhere near the ocean, nowhere near a coastline. Does that mean I can't test a sea kayak? Absolutely not. Sea kayaks aren't just for the sea. In fact, I have no idea why they call sea kayaks sea kayaks. I like to call them touring kayaks because that's what they're for. They're for touring around, whether you're on the ocean coast, open ocean, lakes, rivers, anything you want. In fact, I'm gonna test this sucker on a river with moving water, something that will challenge its maneuverability but also benefit from its theoretical speed. So let's get this sea kayak, not on the sea, on the river. I hope you guys enjoyed that footage. That footage came from an amazing 2-day kayak camping trip that I did with a couple of new buddies, Pete Beck and Kevin of the River Kings, a cool YouTube channel that's worth checking out if you haven't already. But it really goes to show you that the sea kayak can be used for much more than just sea kayaking. Amazing river trip in some really cold conditions. But those 2 days of paddling on the river also was a great opportunity to test this kayak, and this is what I learned. But before I tell you what I learned, I first have to take a quick minute, bear with me. I want to let you know about a new safety program that's available. Kayaking is inherently a pretty safe activity. In fact, in many cases, a very safe activity. But the nature of being on water means when things go wrong, things can go very wrong. And it's usually a little bit of information that can mean the difference from a happy ending and a disastrous ending. And that's why the ACA came out with ACA's online paddling safety course. Now, this is a completely free online course that you can do at your own convenience. And it'll provide you with the knowledge that can make the biggest of impacts in your life. All you have to do is go to americancanoe.org. That small investment in time in doing that course could make a world of difference. And I have to say, thank you to the American Canoe Association for their ongoing commitment to on-water safety and saving lives. All right, let's get into the full review of this boat, starting with Portability. It's a 16-foot sea kayak, and it's 60 pounds. Now, it's as portable as a 16-foot, 60-pound sea kayak can be. 60 pounds is kind of what you expect from a 16-foot sea kayak. It's not that easy to get around, and that's that. It's a strong person can get it around by themselves, but I'd say a majority of people probably need to consider this a two-person moving job, whether it's getting it onto your vehicle or off your vehicle or down to the water. A lot easier with two people, or at least get a kayak cart. Now let's talk stability. They say this thing has fantastic primary and secondary stability. Does it? Well, yeah, it really does have great both types of stability. If you don't know what both of those types of stability are, which most people actually don't, primary stability is how stable it is when you're just sitting there. Do you feel like you have to hold your paddle and every little wave is going to knock you over, or can you just relax when you're sitting? Well, you can very much relax in this kayak. It's got great primary stability. Now, secondary stability really comes into more high performance paddling when you want to tilt the boat on edge. Whether you're making carving turns, whether you're dealing with waves, whatever you're dealing with, sometimes you need to get that boat up on edge. Does it hold on edge very nicely, or are you really playing a high wire balancing act when you're on edge? Well, that's secondary stability. And this boat sits on edge very nicely. It's very easy to put on edge and continue to paddle. Now, performance. It's a 16-foot kayak, and it's 23 inches wide, or rather narrow. It's not a super narrow kayak, but it's pretty narrow. When you have a kayak that's pretty narrow and long, it's going to be fast, and it is fast. Is it the fastest kayak? No. And the reason it's not the fastest kayak is because they put rocker in this thing to make it more maneuverable, easier to turn. And so it's a fast kayak, but it's not the fastest kayak because it's also a very maneuverable kayak. So yes, I would call it a high performance kayak not for just covering major distances, but for doing almost anything. It's a very versatile high performance kayak. Now, on top of that, the outfitting in this thing is really nice. It has solid foot pegs. It has quite solid thigh hooks too. These things are reinforced, so you really get purchase when you're pulling or pushing on the thigh hooks. And then your seat pan, your hip pads, the back pan, it creates a nice shoe-like comfort around your body, so you have a lot of control over the kayak. So the cockpit, the way it wraps around you, is definitely designed for high performance. But it's not confining. It's not the kind of space you get in. It's a nice big cockpit. You don't get in there and go, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to get out of this thing if I flip? Not at all. Really, there's not a whole lot of features to talk about on a sea kayak. I mean, I talked about the cockpit, the comfort of all the cockpit features. Other than that, you have your bungees, you have your perimeter lines, and you have the hatches, and then the skeg. This one has a skeg. Now, let's start with the skeg. The skeg is controlled by this Really cool and easy to use system. I love the system they have. I loved it on the Virgo and I love it on the Leo. I would definitely get that. I haven't tried their Scudder system yet, and I'm interested in trying that one. Now, the hatches are these rubber hatches that, the great thing about rubber hatches is that they provide a really nice and virtually waterproof seal, as long as you put them on fully correctly. Sometimes it can be easy to screw them up, but if you're not paying attention, but they provide a great seal. The flip side is they can be harder to put back on, but these are definitely solid and waterproof. And I tested that because we went through a lot of whitewater. Now, when it comes to hatches, I love the idea of a day hatch right in front. So that's a great spot, easy access to sunscreen, snacks, little things. Now, the day hatch in the back here, right behind your seat, well, it's redundant. You have a day hatch up front, in my opinion. And having the day hatch in the back, what this kayak has is it has 3 bulkheads. It has a bulkhead behind the seat, it has a bulkhead in front of the cockpit, and then it has another bulkhead behind the day hatch. And now, if you don't know what a bulkhead is, it's a wall inside the kayak that separates the kayak into compartments. The problem with having a wall here between the day hatch and the back hatch is that it really reduces the size of this back hatch. But this day hatch behind here isn't very big, and the opening to get in there is quite small as well. So there's just not too many things that I would put in there. I prefer to have just one big compartment, no day hatch behind me. I love having this little day hatch up front. That is 100% a personal preference. That being said, I had space in front of the foot pegs to put a big dry bag. I took everything I needed in this kayak for a comfortable camping trip, a comfortable cold camping trip, because we were camping, it actually dropped below freezing, about 5 degrees below freezing. So we had to bring real camping gear. Now let's talk about comfort. And this one is always near and dear to my heart because over the years I've become more and more a sucker for a comfortable kayak. I'm less willing to hurt for higher performance. I'll take a lesser performing boat that provides more comfort. In this case, you're not giving up anything. It's a nice high performance kayak, but it's also very comfortable. I'm using the HV version, the high volume version. This is for larger paddlers. There is a MV, a mid or medium volume version as well for small or average size paddlers or smaller paddlers than I am. I'm 6'2", 195 pounds or so, and this HV version felt perfect for me. Lots of length in the cockpit. Now I'm long in the leg and that's often a problem, but the foot pegs were left a lot of room. You could be much taller than I am and still have room. In fact, on this trip, I had a dry bag in front of my foot pegs. Lots of room around the knees too. So I didn't feel confined. The deck is high enough, but not super high that you feel like, wow, I'm in a bathtub here. Great sizing, I really like this. This one has a day hatch in the front too, which takes up some space in the cockpit, but that's not even an issue because there's plenty of room in there. Otherwise, in terms of comfort, thigh hooks, seat, hip pads, back pan, none of those things are things to write home about, to give special mention. All of them are just solid. Lastly, let's talk about overall value. $2,599. That's not a cheap kayak, but that's what you have to expect to pay for a kayak of this nature. I mean, high performance kayaks that are as well built as this thing is, kayak is going to last a lifetime. And this kind of kayak opens up a world of opportunities. You can do so much with this one kayak. I took it on a 2-day river kayaking trip. Most people will take it on flat water cruises around lakes, the coast. I mean, you can do so much with this thing. So it's comparable in price to other kayaks in its class, maybe a little on the more expensive side, but it's a very well built kayak. And who is it for? Well, Yes, it's high performance. It's for someone who wants to push things. You could do river paddling and deal with some light whitewater. Definitely ocean paddling, rock gardens, surf. You could take this in almost anything. It's a very versatile kayak. In terms of skill level, even though it's a high performance kayak, a beginner can hop in this kayak and actually feel pretty good. It's stable enough to handle a beginner. Obviously, you'd want to be a confident beginner, but it totally works for a beginner kayaker. So this is for somebody who wants to have a single kayak that can do a wide variety of things. It's not necessarily for a touring kayaker who wants to do week-long, long trips because it doesn't have the kind of capacity you might need for a longer trip. It's for someone who likes to cover distance and is okay with spending a good money for a well-made, high-performing, comfortable touring, not sea-specific kayak. Well, I think I've talked your ear off enough. That was a lot to absorb, but I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to Paddle TV if you haven't already, and check out the Paddle Tales adventure we did. We have a video of the full 2-day river trip down the New River in North Carolina. There'll be a link in the description box down below. And stay tuned, because we got lots more Paddle Tales adventures and a lot more gear reviews coming your way.